All right, for those of us who forgot where we're up to, it's been a while since we met. We're in Simon Kuf Bem Gimel Sif Gimel. Sif Beis, I'm sorry. Okay. We discussed last time about you need to have a minyan of Gedolim for Kriyas HaTorah, and I actually owe you. I prepared a shir on the subject of standing and sitting for Kaddish, but you probably don't remember, that's the last thing we discussed over here. So I'm not going to give that shir right now. We're going to continue on the Mishnah Berurah and what we're supposed to be learning. Okay. Just turn this off. Im kasru kol ha-chumash levadai. If you have the whole chumash written by itself, afilu beglila k'sefer Torah, you have it in the fake Sefer Torah mode. Ein kayim bo ad sheyeh kol chamisha chumshev chumashim tur b'yachad. You have to have them all connected together, like what we call a Sefer Torah. You know, that's basically what you have to have. V'hem ksubim beglila k'sefer Torah, and they have to be written on a rolled scroll. Avo b'chumashim shalanu. If you have bound together a chamisha chumshei Torah, you can't make a bracha on them because it's not a Sefer Torah. It's a Apostle Sefer Torah. I mean, that's probably even wrong to say. It's not a Apostle Sefer Torah. It's just not a Sefer Torah. I'm not so sure that that's correct. Maybe it is a Apostle Sefer Torah. We'll see soon. All right. Sefer Torah. If you have a guy that you don't have the about kaira, right? And they have a guy, you have what's called an unterzager. You have a guy who tells him what to do. And the Shemur tells us this is more or less. I will just say that I don't really understand what the halachic value of such a piece is. Could there be any problem doing that?
He's saying about that, not reading it.
Who?
We're reading this up tomorrow.
Why is he saying about that?
Because he's just listening to the guy next to him. Reading the Chumash. He's reading the words.
He's reading the words, and he's just having him fill in the.
It's possible that he might just hear what he says and not see it himself properly.
So that if he does that, then he's talking out Yotze. That's a disaster.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
No, I understand. But so what is Allah telling us? Finish your thought. I'm not arguing with you. If that would be a real chash, then you have a real problem. But there's no zecher of that whole subject over here, right? So I don't know, Shaffer, you have something to say?
I always have what to say, but I came late and I don't know what we're doing tonight. So no.
We are in Siman Kuf Mem Gimel Sif Beis. And there, one of the question which I just asked is that the Mishnah Berurah says that if you don't have somebody who knows how to learn, you can have somebody, so to speak, whisper it in his ear and then he'll say it afterwards. So I just asked, what is the chiddush of that? I could have thought of that myself. I didn't need the Mishnah Berurah to tell that to me. What's the chiddush of such a halacha? That was the question that I asked. All right, and so let's see the Mishnah Berurah over here. And I'd like to see there's a bir halacha over here, which is very, very important because there's a halacha of kavod hatzibur. What does kavod hatzibur mean? Lev, what's kavod hatzibur? Thank you.
It's doing something for the honor of the tzibur, and you have to do certain things.
Kavod hatzibur doesn't allow this.
Hmm?
What does that mean?
Doesn't allow what?
Whatever the halacha may be. You know, we're going to see over here that you don't learn from a chumash, a chumash kind of a thing, because for tzibur, it's not Kavod Tzibor to advertise that you're Sefer Torah list. I'll just mention that many years ago, must be about 15 years ago, when the Shul was considering some kind of a campaign, so we went to Rabban Leib Steinman to ask if we should start a campaign at that time. And he says, does your shul have a Sefer Torah? And we said no. So he says, first make a Sefer Torah. That was what spurred on the Sefer Torah that we own. Was Rabban Leib's doing, if you want to call it. I'm going to read halacha. Ein mimanim elamisha nesmala ziknoi mivnei kavod hatzibur. We don't have a chazan be a guy who doesn't have a beard yet. Alabakroi, but if it's not a job as a kavua, it's just a fill-in job, so to speak. Then as long as maybe shnei saris yachalor v'nei hateva, but watchelo yisma. Okay, that's the halacha. Says the Taz, Beis. Mivnei kavod hatzibur. Chek kasav Rambam. Ubeis Yosef kasav. L'fi zeh, im hatzibur roitzim limcha al kavoidai. Shaper dummy. Right? No, it's not kavod hatzibur that the tzibur has to let this young whippersnapper be the chazan. Right? But they say, no, we like him. He has a good voice. For whatever reason it is that we're Michael HaKuvaydam, then it should work. Udvarav Tmuim. Why is it Tmuya? Anybody want to guess? Why is it Tmuya?
Kavod Hatzibur is a text that things that have to be done a certain way. Not everyone's right to decide we want to do it in a certain way.
Why not? Why isn't it that right? You're warm. What?
Ambiance is not the right word, but a shul is supposed to have a certain
decorum. Okay. Yechiel, you want to say something?
Kavod Hatzibur is a concept when there's tefillah b'tzibur. It doesn't have to do with what the people there think.
What does it have to do with?
Kvod the Shechina.
100%. Dead on. Listen, udvar to win. Devade afa Rambam loy mahani mechila. But it doesn't help mechila. Why? Devade kavod hatzibur bazeh hu kvod shamayim. Shemiskavnim lechabed Hashem yizbarach b'shatz shehu roy liyoitz melech v'ara kahol negdol yizbarach. That we have to have a shliach tzibur who is befitting to be a beseecher to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we say we're Michael that we should send in a trap. The Kavod Hatzibur has to come the covenant to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So how does it help Mechila at all? Okay? So we have what? Because the tzibur demands having a good representative. It's the tzibur's supplication to Hashem which demands a certain stance. And this is muchach from our halacha. They didn't mention at all Kavod Hatzibur. They should have mentioned by us that the reason it's Kavod Hatzibur, the tzibur doesn't want. The tzibur wants to learn out of a chumash. We'll say we're Michael Taibas and we'll learn out of a chumash. Now, I think it's I couldn't help but read this inside because I think it's a fascinating Mishnah Berura and Magen Taz and the Prichodesh is Chaylik. We can find him over here. This edition. In this edition, I don't know where we find him. He must be someplace. He usually is his own guy. Pre-Chodesh, here we go. Okay, where are we? No, where is it? Dollars, weird. Okay, two I cut. But the only actual the shaka that you're cutting, but I'll find in this one. The mission for the Bir Allah will bring this down. Here. Take a look, see. Nice, yeah. Okay, here I have it. Okay. Shamash Medeno Yerucham Shemrotz Atzimu Lichal Kavadim Karim Bite. Take us on Mordechai Baal Bicha Kosov of Beis Yosef the love Mash McCain. I know the time Machina. I will feed Tam Kavod Atziwer, called the Machal Atziwer Al Kavoidam, Rishoiv, Ledasir Ben Yerucham Ba Mordechai. So there are those places that say Kavod Atziwer means Kavod Atziwer, and if they're Michael, then they're Michael. So it comes out a fascinating nafkamina halacha l'maisa. If you don't have a Sefer Torah, can one lay out of a chumash? So according to the Taz, you can't. According to the Beis Yosef and the Pri Chodesh, you can. If the tzibur is Michael.
The Shatzian brings that the Lavush says that the reason is because it's a genai for the tzibur that they don't own a proper Sefer Torah.
I know, and therefore what?
So I'm saying, so that sounds like it's more about how they feel about it as opposed to decorum.
I understand, but is that nitan lemechila or not nitan lemechila? Which side of the fence does that put you?
That points me to the opposite of what I said before, because this has to do with, it's a genai lahem that they don't have a bad reflection on them.
Yeah, well, that's obviously it's that's why, because of that lavush, that's why I said over that story with the Bar Lane, because he held that that's a tzibur has to have that. All right. Anyways, this is a fascinating nugget in understanding what's going on over here. So this is a halacha l'maisa big nafkamina, and you should never have to have this be in a situation. That's all. Okay. I see the Mishnah. Ein kam b'nei kavod hatzibur, aval b'chamashu shalanu da'enam b'glila v'chenenim tzfur b'kidim v'lo b'klaf v'ein l'vorach aleim u'v'yishav shenem sefer Torah. This is fascinating. They don't have one knuckle liquors b'chamashim b'lei bracha. Why? Shalotishkach Torah's kriya. Now, I would have said better. What would I have said better? That's right. But he doesn't say that. So one will be Medaik in the Mishnah Brura that he doesn't hold like the Pri Chodesh and the Beis Yosef. All right? And by the way, how do I know this Taz? It's a Bir Halach over here. He says to check it out. So it's not like the Mishnah Brura didn't know it, in case you had such trouble in it. Okay? That's what should be done. But we shouldn't make that mistake to think that it's a kosher kriya. And etc. Fine. Next halacha. What? So I would think that this is also a genai. That's what I think the pshat is. This is I will say that I heard a story, Baruch Hashem, I wasn't there to see it, that when I was a little kid, that there was a guy who he was the balkair in the shul, and he had a tape recorder in his pocket with the kriya, and he would turn it on Ben Gavra Gavra, and he would say along with the Kriya from the thing in his pocket.
On Shabbos or during the week?
On Shabbos. On Shabbos. Yes, Baruch Hashem, we've come a long way. Baruch Hashem, generally speaking, we've come a long way. I know that a certain community, which I will not say where it was, where the Rosh HaKohol got into a fight with the rabbi, and I think the rabbi, threw him out of his position. So Rosh HaKohol said after Shabbos, and that Shabbos morning, he had a few guys come with him to the bus stop, and they were there when the Rav came off the bus, and then the Rav lost his job before the Rosh HaKohol. But anyways, yeah, that's a true story. Anyways, a lot has happened in the last 70 years. Let's leave it at that. All right. Anyways, halacha gimel. Afilu kfarim she'en nimtza lahem sefer Torah kosher, ein mevorchin olav. You don't make, even though you're in a bitty, what I call a bitty avid situation. Too bad you don't make a bracha if you don't have a kosher sefer Torah. And we're going to see at the end of the next sif if that really is the opinion of everybody or not. Okay. Now says the Mishnah Berurah, V'hainu ben b'chubash nosei b'gvila, ben b'sefer Torah shleima, ein mevorchin olav tzad asam l'chaber, al fil b'shas apcha kein mevorech. And the come on, that we're going to say that there are other opinions. We'll see that at the end of the next sif. Sif Dalet. Now this is a very important sif. Not so easy. And we're going to learn this long Mishnah Berurah, and this one of the Mishnah Berurahs that I would say shows that halacha is not an exact science. People assume that halacha is an exact science. It's just not. And we'll finish this Mishnah Berurah. So I'm going to say, so what does the Mishnah Berurah hold? And then we'll scratch our heads a little bit. Okay? So let's see. Imnin tzataz b'sefer Torah b'shas hakriya, motzin sefer Torah acheres, u'maschil mimokum shenimtza tos. You found the tos, so you continue from the new sefer Torah from the place of the tos. U'mashlimim ha'korim al oisim shekoru b'muta. And we count the guys who named the Apostle Sefer Torah as legitimate aliyahs. This is very problematic. We shouldn't like that. It should be all or nothing. You wasted your time till now. Because you named from Apostle Sefer Torah. But we don't say that. You start from the new Sefer Torah without a bracha, and you finish with the bracha achroina. These are very problematic things. Okay, now let's just see the Mishnah Berurah over here, because there's a hakdama which is very important. Kidei lahaber is divrei zog sasif, akdim zeh hakdama k'tzara. Behold, the dasher of Aposkim, the Sefer Torah shechoset teva achas or achas or nimtzubay tos sula likra bo. It's possible. No bargaining wiggle room. You have to start over from scratch. Why? You may have had good intentions, but you didn't do anything. V'das mixas apoiskim, afilu chosek hamsukim, koshkan shnimtza tos ba'alma, av deloy nikra sefer Torah, le'im shekam b'mitzvah sefer Torah, even though it's not really a sefer Torah. Use that for a word? It's kosher enough to lean on it. Okay, so anybody can have the kosher meter can fill this in for me. All right, Lev, you want to fill that in? What does it mean, kosher enough? Why should there be a difference between Kriyas HaTorah and the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah? Wow, so quiet over here today. So you're adding insult to injury. So I'm saying, but you're making it worse, not better. Okay. I think that the answer to the question is that the purpose is to learn what you're learning. And if you're learning what you're learning is okay. Now, let's say the problem isn't where you're learning. Yeah. Now we're reading from. Okay. So
How do you know where the problem is? Maybe there's another problem that you're not aware of.
It always is.
So, but then you can't rely on it.
No. I was saying even if there is another problem, it doesn't bother me.
I'm asking why wouldn't it bother? Why shouldn't it bother us? Why is this permissible?
Because the idea of I'm suggesting the idea of learning from a Sefer Torah is that Sachakol you're learning. So you have there's some mistakes there. It doesn't mean that you're not learning. Whereas the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah is you have to have the whole thing. The point is, if you're not b'yotzer in mitzvah Ksiva Sefer Torah, when I just let me just start off with a fascinating idea. A person makes a mica on his roof. So you make a bracha. When do you make the bracha? When you put up the first one or when you close the last one?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the answer is probably wrong, but it doesn't make sense at the beginning. What if you never finish it?
Do you make a bracha before you eat the kazayis and matzah?
Yes.
Or you never going to finish?
Brachas are let's see, but here it's only complete when the roof is completely surrounded. It's still a mishal. So what's the point of putting one panel up and the rest is still up?
Because you're starting to do your mitzvah. Why are you such a pessimist?
No, but I mean, this is a practical mitzvah. It's there to prevent someone falling. If you haven't surrounded the whole roof.
That's for sure. That's for sure true. I'm not arguing with you. You're not makayim the mitzvah until you do the last one. But you're not makayim mitzvah v'dikas chametz until you do the last room, and you still make a bracha at the beginning.
I agree. I also have a problem with these brachas because potentially if you don't finish it, you're stuck.
But why are you such a pessimist? Why is you're not going to finish?
It's a big work. It's human nature sometimes to be procrastinating.
Okay. Well, I could tell you, maybe it depends how big your roof is.
Why are you even asking the question? Why would you think you would make it not at the beginning?
Well, because I have to deal with a guy who's sitting behind you, right? He says he can't understand that, and then where I am, he's sitting behind you, right? He says there's no tzad that should be in the beginning. Of course you do it at the end because who says it's going to happen?
We always make a bracha before the mitzvah.
Somebody says, when are you makayim the mitzvah?
Doesn't matter when you makayim it. It's when you make the bracha over last.
I'm going to ask a question over here. This question is Eli Iskowitz is going to try to answer this question. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Chacham lev yikach mitzvahs. So Moshe Rabbeinu, he separated three things in every Yardei. Okay, did he do anything or he didn't do anything?
Well, he did something, but it wasn't effective until the other three were named.
So afterwards, retroactively, did he have a part in the mitzvah?
Yes.
I challenge what you're saying. Why do I challenge what you're saying? I don't know. I don't really understand 100% why what I'm saying is correct. But otherwise, Chazal wouldn't have to tell us Chacham levikach mitzvahs. If he has a part of it, so then that's not Chacham levikach mitzvahs. He has a part. But by the fact that Chazal are saying Chacham levikach mitzvahs, Chazal seem to be indicating, even though he didn't accomplish and he doesn't have the mitzvah, but being that he gets a booby prize, that's also a good idea. That's what Chazal seem to be indicating, right?
Perhaps not. Perhaps they're saying you do as much as you could at the time that you could do.
So do you get credit for effort and you get credit for accomplishment? That's what Chazal seem to be saying. But Eli Iskowitz seems to say that you did what you did. Right? You hear the problem, Eli?
I do.
I don't understand. Can I ask you a question? This is an important idea in Lumdis, so I'll just be marchiv because it happens in many places. There's a machlokes rishonim. The minig in many places in Rishonim's time was that they were machabed for a bris milah more than 1 mile. 1 mile would do the priya, and 1 mile would do the chitach of the arla. They did it in 2 stages. The 2 stages of bris milah. So one did one and one did the other. And as a machlokes rishonim, if you're allowed to split it on Shabbos, because if the halacha is mol v'loy para, is ki'ilu loy mol. So the guy who he only did milah, well, is he a machal Shabbos? Anybody buy that?
Well, and if it was nifra levad, it's not a bris milah.
I don't know. Well, that's an interesting question, but what does it have to do with anything?
Well, this guy's not mol v'loy para. It was para. Now he's mol.
There are
He
2
didn't do it, the other
components.
guy did it, but it's done.
Yeah, but what he did alone is nothing. It only became something because somebody else finished it off.
We're talking about the priya.
Right.
Is-
One guy did Mila and the other guy did Priya. So the halacha is, according to some Rishonim, the guy's like a Machal Shabbos because he wasn't a kind of mitzvah of Mila. Now,
I see this one. Is the Beis HaMikdash called after David HaMelech?
Mizmar, Shir, Chanukas, Abayis, L'Shlomo. Is that right?
Oh, did David build it, or he just did all the preparations for it?
He didn't even do that?
He did. He gathered up all the materials. He made the plans. He did whatever he could. He did. Did he complete it? No.
If I'm not mistaken, look at Navi. Shlomo is the one who sent the people out, not David.
To what? David did whatever he could at the time.
Which was nothing.
Well, he gathered up all the metal. He made the plans
right.
for the Beis HaMikdash with.
He bought the land. He bought the land.
Bought the land. Okay.
He put all the money aside from all the wars for the Beis HaMikdash.
Yeah, but that's called good intentions, right?
But he gets credit.
So there's Maimar Chazal. If you look at the Medrash discusses why he gets credit. But he about it did not do it. He did not build it. Period. He didn't even start it.
Yeah, he didn't. But he gets a chelik in it.
So he gets. So listen, he is a promoter of the project, and that could be enough that he is called. It's called Al Shmoy. But did he build it? No. He was puzzled from building it. That's what he was told because he had blood on his hands. How can you call him the builder if he's not allowed to build it? Right? But yes, it's still called his. It's still called his. Okay. So, but we understand that that's not, when I say, that's what I call in the world of Ki'ilu, right? He didn't build it, right? But it's a good question. I accept the question, and that's why I'm pointing this out. So there's sometimes things that even though, so there's a machlokes hapoiskim by a Micah, if you make the bracha at the beginning or at the end. And the Chassam Sefer says at the end, if not, the Rosh Chochmah says the Osamech, if I'm not mistaken, says in the beginning, there's a machlokes. And there the question is, did you accomplish anything until you did the end? If a person stands in the doorway on Shabbos and there's an animal inside, and the animal could still go out, he is not chayiv for tzad. When the other person goes in, the other person is chayiv legamri. Right? That's understandable, right? So if a person has a roof until you make sure that there's no, how do we call it, hole, but no falling spot. Anyways, that's that machlokes. Why did we get to that over here? I'm trying to remember because somebody asked me something. Oh, right. So now the point when a person is writing a Sefer Torah is to have a Sefer Torah that's complete. In Limud HaTorah, it's really only you have to be learning what you're learning. So
When you say complete, you mean accurate and correct, not complete.
Yeah, that's I stand corrected. Okay. Anyways, so let's see. Das makes up place now. Viele Chasser Kava Psukim, the Koshken Shinimsa Tos Ba'alma, after Loinika Sefer Torah, and Shikaiba Mitzvah Asay Shaksiva Sefer Torah. We come up with the Nicholas boy, Imeno Acheres, because your mindset more or less works. Vini Amachaber is Sirzeh, Sasa Mechatchila, and Hoy Sefer Torah, Psula, the Baruch Filu Wakam Shem, Acheres, Achrei Dora Posim Sefer Dawson. Ach, Im Nimsa Tos, Achashe Kwakora Sidra. So then, Posa Karab Rabbeinu Yaakov Beirav, the Yibidiyevit Simcha Das Ksas HaPoiskim Hanal, Shemachshir Nikras Boy, that it would have been kosher Lechatchila to learn from it, and therefore will also like Kriya, Ben Soch Loitzi Sefer Torah Acheres, Veskimu Evachroinim, who Adinim Nimtza Tois Ben Gabel Gabel, Vadaim Lo Yishlim Shibakruim, Liyamashakorel Kwar, Simcha Das Mekilim Hanal, Sheyotzu B'Diyevit. So we say that b'diavad we paskin like one set of poskim, and the chatchila we paskin like a different set of poskim. That's what happened. So what's the halacha? So it's what you're asking, right? Achlikas by aser, and therefore matzin acheres and maskil v'makom shepasko akriya mashlim ma'akarim alayis marishanim shekar mutas. As far as what was already done, we say that it was kosher. But as far as what's going to be done, we say that it's possible. This is, when I say a difficult pill for many people to swallow. All right, so what's the halacha? Okay. Because achronim, the mikol makom.
If you're already messed up, has different rules than if you're about to do something.
It is, but here it's the same thing, and you're continuing on the same continuum. I'm being samech at the same time. And I'm saying that it was good, and then I'm saying it was no good. All right? It's okay, because you can accomplish somehow by kashafas and do it on the second Sefer Torah, that would be wonderful. That's when he made a bracha achroina. Aval in the emtza kriyoso imotzutos. Afilu karo harbe psukim. Kol shekei kesheloi karo adayin shloshet psukim. If you found the psul before you even the 3 psukim, Gam afilu gamar kriyoso gamri. Kol shel adayin lo bracha achroina. Ein lo bracha achroina al psula. To zeh lechatchila. To make a bracha, that's lechatchila. Alayetzi acheres v'yikru sham shloshet psukim. Yivarach sham bracha achroina levad. Because the guy made bracha rishayna, that's l'chatchila. I mean, that's b'diavad. That you already did it. Doesn't make a difference because the bracha is on kriyas haTorah, not on that thing in particular. This we discussed many times. This concept. Okay. The das Mordechai dim kvar kol shlosha psukim ve'eshel hafsik sham she'eino shnei psukim soch leparsha. If you're at a place where you could stop. You make a bracha achroina in the puzzle Sefer Torah. Yes, the Madain lo kar shlukim or shekar shlukim el shenisha rak shnei psukim barsha sheyesh la'asik sham yikra hatois ba'peh v'yikma kriyasu ba'psula v'yivach bracha achroina v'achach yetzi acheres. You make the bracha achroina on the puzzle Sefer Torah, even though you know that it's possible. What? because it's also b'diavad, because it's part of the bracha rishon and achron have to go together. No, because it's going on this screen. What you were laying over here. That's exactly. He says the first day it says like you're saying, and they say not like that. Okay. V'cheidim hu b'rosh chodesh ki yotzer shetzorch lahashim parshas chavis hayom and the hoytzav al hakruim im ken hatois b'kir arvius yesh lahafsik shama v'lebrach brach achrayna im ken yitzorch lahoytzav al min hakruim. Since you can't do that, kivan she'efsher lahafsik shama yigmul kriyos b'psula v'lebrach brach achrayna. So we have over here 3 different levels, I guess we'll call it. We have those who say it's possible gamri, those who say it's b'diavad, okay, but lechatchila not, and those that say even to finish off what you're laning, that's called b'diavad, and you can finish it off in the possible one. But Ramah Baga also ke'ein hachra b'neihem, and the Ramah is slicing it thinner. No. Then like Karadain Rak Shnei Psukim or Afilu Kar Shosh Psukim Achia Shel Hafsik Sham Kigon Shnei Psukim Samach LeParsha Kiyetz was that then Lo Yivach Brach Achrayna Aliyetz Yacheres Yivchias Shama Yivach Brach Achrayna Kedas Hamachaber. Then we do it like that. Avo in Kvar Kar Shosh Psukim B'Makom She'esh Shel Hafsik Sham Daito Kamordechai Yivach Brach Achrayna Ala Psula V'Achar Kach Yetz Yacheres, and you make a new one. So the Ramah holds that b'diavad it's possible to make a bracha achrayna on a puzzle sefer Torah. Okay, so that's our introduction. All right, that's v'shas. Okay, v'shas pirsat Torah. Pirs shaloi karu adayin rach mitzvah ha'olim. The v'nishlam say that a parsha v'achach limtzotos. If you're already finished and you put it away, or you made a bracha achrayna, according to some, we'll see, then you consider it kosher. So, kosher. I'll just mention at this point, since it came to my mind, there's a famous question, and this happened in Ramat Shlomo about 2 years ago. This is the weirdest shayla I ever heard of. I don't know if that's true, but it definitely ranks. They're leading out of the same Sefer Torah for many years, and they found that there was an extra urea in the Sefer Torah. Got that? Now, how
with all the writing?
With all the writing, a full urea, duplicate urea. Now, how is it that they were laying out of this Sefer Torah every year and they never found it? Because this was a very Mehuder Sefer, and every year, Parsha Zochar, they used it for Parsha Zochar. And it was in the Parsha, I think Tetzaveh where it is, where it had the extra urea. So every year, that Parsha was never used, that Sefer Torah. And they used the other Sefer Torah. And it comes out that for all these years, people, this is a true story, people weren't Yaitza, maybe, Parsha Zochar. So there was a question about what is the psul if you have a Sefer Torah that has extra urea, which itself is a fascinating question. But the halacha is, what would you say? Were you Yaitza Parsha Zochar or not?
What happens when the Ashkelenki say?
No, the problem wasn't in Gitzese. The problem was in Tetzaveh. The double, what do you call it? The double.
They didn't read the right. They didn't read the regular parsha because they were reading Zachar in that one. So they rolled to Zachar.
Every week they rolled. Every year they were rolling it to Zachar. Right. So they should have this kosher sefer for Zachar, which they use the puzzle sefer. But that's life.
But I'm saying, but they actually read that. But they actually read that section. It's actually, I mean, I think
They
isn't
read
Zachar in?
Parshas Zachar and Kiseitze out of Apostle Sefer Torah too, every year.
It's not always Tetzaveh though.
It's always the Tzava, I think so.
But I'm saying when they learned Kiseitze during the year, then they heard
Yeah.
the Parsha of Zachar. They were
But
Mechayitzah.
first of all, they didn't have necessarily in mind, but anyways, but they were reading it out of this same Sefer Torah. Because this was the Mahuder Sefer. Right?
So
All
how
right.
did they miss it then?
Dr. Cohen, you like this story? Okay. Anyways, I don't like the story. It's very sad to me. Anyways, but so here the Mimig, the Chasam Sefer says, and I think that at this point we should all understand. Do you have to hear over Parsha Zachar? What did we just get finished saying?
This year Parsha Zachar is Truma.
This year Sundays fall out on Tuesday. I mean, this year everything is off, right? When is the last time that you read this Haftarah that you read this year, this Shabbos? The last time that they cut a baby in half. Okay, that's the last time. Anyways, this year has all, I think there's eight strange things that happened this year. But whatever. All right. Anyways, I'm just saying. So according to what we learned right now, the Psak and Chasam Sefer should be very understandable. So what you learned out of Apostle Sefer Torah is what to be Seifachan the Yoyitza. Yeah. It's a Takonos Anavim. Yeah, and I said, but here we have, it's irrelevant. In other words, I'm not right now saying what the halacha should be. I'm saying that we already understand that there's basis to say that you like that it's your yaitza. You like the yaitza. All right. Anyways.
Isn't there another reason to say you'd be out, say, with Parsha Zachor, because there's a shita for that. You don't need to read from a Sefer Torah at all. I'd like, for example, one year my wife wasn't able to go to shul, and she was told, read it from a Chumash, and you would say.
Well, I cannot argue with you because there are definitely such opinions. That is not the accepted opinion. And how do you know that that's not the accepted opinion? Because why is it that your wife was going to shul?
It's minhag, isn't it? That ladies go for Parsha Zachor.
Well, that's a machlekes if it's an obligation or a minig. I always say Barabin that it's only a minig and you don't have to drive yourself crazy. But that's not the opinion of all the poskim. Okay, but even for a man, there is such an opinion. I'm not arguing with you, and it's brought l'alocha. But the question is that what we're being samech on? All right, I think we're going to stop over here. We'll pick up here Mitzvah next week.